21-year-old Beethoven arrived in Vienna as an unknown musician amid a sea of professionals. But what he lacked in experience, he made up for in one special talent, a rare gift for improvisation. And there was only one arena where this prized ability could make or break an artist's reputation for good: the piano duel. These musical showdowns played out like gladiator matches between leading virtuosos. First, the competitors played prepared works, showcasing the finer points of their technique. Then came sight-reading challenges, each pianist trying to stump the other with difficult scores. And finally, the most crucial round of all, improvisations on a given theme, with the winner crowned by applause. The victor gained not only in public reputation, but often received gifts and the support of wealthy patrons, something vital for a rising composer like Beethoven. The most prized pianists were those who could truly improvise, transforming any given theme into dazzling variations on the spot. This was Beethoven's specialty. Whereas lesser pianists might add superficial glosses on top of a theme, Beethoven would deconstruct it entirely, reassembling its pieces in imaginative ways. He loved to create expressive adagios with singing lines sustained by the pedal, contrasting with the dry, pearly style of most pianists. Another of Beethoven's favorite tricks was to prolong an obvious cadence by taking unexpected detours. Sometimes he would do this for several minutes, even in the middle of a chamber work or concerto, to the dismay of his collaborators and the delight of his audiences. To really impress a crowd, a good improviser like Beethoven would present a fugued variation, beginning with imitative entries that often spun out after a few bars. The rarer act of improvising a full fugue was the ultimate display of mastery. These were the primary weapons in Beethoven's arsenal, and to start building his reputation in Vienna, he needed a good challenger. In early 1793, he got one. One day, Carl Czerny's father ran into his friend Josef Gelinek on the street. Gelinek was a reputable pianist who specialized in variations like this one, often emphasizing speed over expression. Gelinek told Czerny he was on his way to a piano duel with an inexperienced newcomer and boasted that he would give him a real taste of Viennese pianism. When Gelinek met Czerny again the next day, his confidence was shattered. "Yesterday was the day I'll remember," he said. "I gave that young man a theme to improvise on, and I've never even heard Mozart play so admirably. He manages difficulties and effects at the keyboard never even dreamed of." This was Gelinek's first encounter with Beethoven. But he wasn't just impressed, he felt threatened. Fearing for his prized reputation, he reportedly rented apartments near Beethoven's where he could overhear him practicing and composing. Beethoven soon realized that his original ideas were being stolen, and it was only a matter of time before they would appear in print, passed off as Gelinek's own. So Beethoven fought back by publishing a set of variations for violin and piano with an unusually difficult coda, featuring extended trills entwined with a melodic line, even though that line was already doubled in the violin part. This was a deliberate choice, not only to publicly claim the special effect as his own invention, but to catch pianists like Gelinek off guard at musical gatherings where the piece would be read at sight. Upon reaching this unique passage, Gelinek would inevitably stumble and embarrass himself. The tactic must have worked. This device eventually became one of Beethoven's specialties as Gelinek's name faded into history. A few years later, in 1796, Beethoven claimed an even bolder victory. He spent the summer near Berlin at the Prussian court, hoping to make some good money from its music-loving king, Frederick William II. But to do that, he had to go up against the incumbent court pianist and composer, Friedrich Himmel. Himmel was a local favorite who focused more on operatic and choral compositions, but he made an early career splash as a piano virtuoso. However, it seems that Himmel didn't put a lot of effort into his pianistic craft after winning his court job. Described by an acquaintance as a dissolute eccentric who lived perpetually between a state of drunk on champagne and cheerless sobriety, Himmel was likely unprepared for the arrival of an ambitious rising talent like Beethoven. After meeting, the two pianists agreed to improvise for one another, with Beethoven going first. Then, Himmel took his turn and began to work up momentum, only Beethoven suddenly cut him off. "Well, when are you going to start?" he asked. Apparently, Beethoven thought Himmel was just warming up and impatiently demanded the real improvisation. After this awkward exchange, Beethoven improvised for the king, who was so impressed that he awarded him a job, presumably the one already occupied by Himmel. But Beethoven declined. He couldn't stand the sentimental Berlin audiences who reacted to his improvisations with sobs instead of applause. And so, having outplayed the local star pianist, insulting him mid-performance, winning and refusing his job, Beethoven left with a gold-filled casket from the king and a reputation that continued to grow. This type of dominance became his calling card, and just a few years later, he would outdo even this feat with one more legendary duel. Daniel Steibelt's modern reputation is unfairly one-sided. Remembered today mostly as a foil to Beethoven, he was once a popular composer who pioneered novel effects and excelled in lighter genres. His fame and talent was great enough to pose a legitimate threat to Beethoven, who didn't hesitate to defend his home turf when Steibelt visited Vienna in 1800. Steibelt had a particular gift for patron posturing. He gained early attention with a 1790 sonata dedicated to Marie Antoinette. After the Queen's execution, he skillfully flattered the new regime by writing a new sonata for Madame Bonaparte in 1800. Only months after Napoleon seized power. This made him dangerous in a duel environment with wealthy elites, whose favor he was all too adept at winning. As a pianist, Steibelt had a flashy technique, but lacked the all-important skill of improvisation. His signature effect was the tremolo, a new technique he introduced as early as 1795. By rapidly alternating between two notes in each hand, Steibelt could adapt almost any theme into a four-part texture, while swelling the dynamics like an organ. These tremolo sections developed slowly and simply, helping mask Steibelt's limited improv ability. When Steibelt made his way to Vienna in 1800, he remained unaware he was about to face the pianist whose very strength was everything he had learned to fake. Their first encounter took place in the luxurious palace of the Count von Fries. First, Beethoven played his modest clarinet trio and only received some half-meant compliments from his opponent. Steibelt then played a piano quintet followed by an improvised fantasy, being sure to unveil his signature tremolos. The tactic worked, the crowd was delighted, and Beethoven refused to play again that evening. But why didn't Beethoven immediately respond? His motivation could have been strategic. Steibelt had already shown his cards and won over the audience. Beethoven might have been content to sit back and observe the limits of Steibelt's playing, undoubtedly noticing the thinness of his improvisations. So the two parted ways and agreed to meet again the next week. For the second encounter, Steibelt went first, presenting another piano quintet and a clearly planned fantasy on a theme from Beethoven's clarinet trio. This was an escalation, and the provoked Beethoven now had full license to humble his challenger. He made a show of picking up a cello part from Steibelt's quintet, placed it upside down on the music rack, and produced a stunning improvisation on a randomly selected theme. This became the most storied improvisation of Beethoven's career. He likely used every weapon in his arsenal, from singing adagios to rapid toccata variations. For scholar Tom Begin, Beethoven's choice of a cello part might have been a calculated stunt, as the bass line was more likely to yield good material for a fugued variation, something he knew Steibelt was incapable of doing. In fact, it's entirely possible that Beethoven had thought of this move days in advance. He had a week to prepare for his second encounter with Steibelt, who had escaped the first round as the audience favorite. Perhaps Beethoven anticipated that Steibelt would prepare an improvisation and came up with a perfect way to prove the authenticity of his own by brandishing a seemingly random, inverted cello part. Like a skilled magician, Beethoven could have set up all the variables beforehand, testing out baseline improvisations for several days until he had worked out all the possibilities that a conventional cello line like Steibelt's might yield. Premeditated or not, the ingenious move worked. Steibelt left the room before Beethoven had finished playing, and even avoided him for the rest of his life, another 23 years. As late as 1825, 2 years after Steibelt's death, Beethoven's conversation books show his friends still talking about his famous triumph a quarter century earlier. The story remains one of the most popular Beethoven anecdotes. People often view Beethoven as this towering demigod who passively cruised to fame on natural talent alone. But these stories reveal someone more realistic, a shrewd musician who methodically engaged in high-profile duels to earn his reputation even at the expense of others. He detected the schemes of Gelinek and employed countermeasures to make him stumble. He could have cashed in on Himmel's job at the Prussian court, but declined to instead build his reputation in the public eye. As for the Steibelt duel, he waited until his opponent had run out of tricks, then went for the takedown with a showy stunt that could not be matched. Though Beethoven's deafness forced an early end to his performing career by 1811, he did accomplish one enduring feat in this last duel. For better or worse, very few have taken Steibelt seriously for over 200 years, making Beethoven's improvisation the world's most devastating diss track.